Appreciate the partners from Safeware for hosting this webinar for us. We're greatly appreciative of that. I am Matt Schaefer, Vice President of Business Development for StarChase, and I'll let Kerry introduce himself down below.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Safeware. As Matt said, my name is Kerry Goldberg. I'm the National Business Development Manager for StarChase. A little bit about myself. I'm a retired police captain after 28 years. I retired from the San Ramon Police Department, and prior to that, I started my career with the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office. And we're excited to have you here today and present to you.
So guys, we'll start it off here, a quick presentation, go through a few of these slides, talk about the life-saving technology, things that we've developed in-house, as well as some proprietary apps that we also have developed as well. And then we'll answer questions at the end and hopefully get everybody more educated about our products. Look forward to it.
So I know Matt's going to start a brief PowerPoint presentation. We will try to get through this as quick as we can, but there's a lot of information related to StarChase, not only the technology itself and the products, but what a program looks like for agencies. And we'll really try and impress upon you everything that takes place and that your agencies benefit from with the program. So we will jump right into it. Again, StarChase, our mission is simply to reduce risk, save lives, and protect communities. A little bit about our company. We are based out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. That's where all our products are made. Our headquarters team is located there. The entire business development team basically it consists of retired law enforcement executives, law enforcement supervisors, and then of course we all work for Matt, who is our vice president of business development, and then of course we've got our folks back there working at headquarters, all the IT professionals, and everyone else who makes StarChase happen. So what we like to jump into right away are some key decision points for agencies deciding or considering going forward with a StarChase program. I like to look at these as sometimes the return of investment that you make in StarChase doesn't necessarily equate to a dollar amount, but these decision points are going to be common themes for every agency. You are going to see through this presentation how through our core view mapping, implementing a StarChase program, there's absolutely an officer safety and increased morale component to it. Both of our apprehension products fit in any use of force continuum. They are designed to de-escalate those high-risk events associated with high-speed pursuits. We're going to show you through our core view mapping and lifetime GPS tracking how StarChase becomes a force multiplier for your agency, extending command and control for your supervisors as well as the officers or deputies involved in the incident. And frankly, the reason we're able to do that is because we're providing real-time visibility in our core view mapping, which in turn is going to give your agency improved situational awareness. I know Matt's going to speak a little bit about this on the risk management impact and liability exposure, so I won't discuss that. But certainly last but not least, integrating StarChase, we are going to pair well with the safe apprehension tools and crime recognition investments that your agency has probably already made, more so as it relates to LPRs, real-time crime centers. And then, of course, last but not least on this slide, it's really important to point out both of our apprehension tools are actually endorsed by the national chapter of the ACLU. And I will get into why we got that endorsement in the next few slides. But Matt, if you want to touch on the risk management and liability exposure component to our programs.
Yeah, and we've seen from hundreds of agencies across the country who've actually adopted StarChase programs. Part of that evaluation process to begin a program started with risk management assessment of policy, procedures, operations within respective PDs and sheriff's offices throughout the country. We've seen a significant impact on insurance liability exposure and liability exposure in general from civil litigation, as well as overall officer safety, a reduced level of crashed vehicles, obviously, and events that actually result in either an officer's vehicle being damaged or totaled in some cases, and also private citizens and innocent bystanders. So overall, the amount of risk management exposure can be greatly reduced by the use of this technology as well.
So here's our X factor. These are just some basic numbers from the company, and this is over a compilation of 12 years of stats gathered from our customer agencies. I think that all of these numbers are important, but I think the most important one that I want you all to focus on is in over 12 years of being available in the marketplace within law enforcement agencies, 0 injuries, 0 fatalities, and 0 successful court challenges associated with our apprehension tools. I'll say that again, 0 injuries, 0 fatalities, and 0 successful court challenges. Those numbers are huge. And I would challenge anybody to look at the different tools that you have within your use of force continuum and find another tool that can boast those numbers. Furthermore, moving on, we have an 86% apprehension rate based from our customer feedback. And that's not just an apprehension rate or a location rate of stolen vehicles or wanted vehicles. That's an 86% apprehension rate of someone's in handcuffs. And I think going back, if you're following stats, the national average is around 70. I would submit that's artificially high. I know in my former agency, we had a lot of license plate readers throughout the city. And our pursuits went up exponentially as soon as we embedded those license plate readers and implemented that technology. But I can tell you through our policy and just dealing with theft-related crimes, our apprehension rate as it pertained to pursuits was nowhere near 86%. I would submit it was nowhere near 50%. But you'll see how through this core view mapping and our tools work, agencies are experiencing tremendous success, regardless of the type of policy that they have. And then, of course, the number of life saves, it's incalculable. We have no way to know, but we have to assume anytime a law enforcement officer engages in a pursuit or attempts to catch a fleeing vehicle, when StarChase is deployed, if agencies or officers are able to dial that scenario back, slow it down, take control of the narrative, that if we're not speeding through streets or neighborhoods on freeways at excessive rates of speed, that we're saving lives every day.
It's important to point out that all these stats that we're bringing you guys come directly from our customers. So every deployment that occurs anywhere that a StarChase program exists, we get an after action report or a feedback report for every deployment. So this goes across the entire spectrum of government law enforcement, from a federal level down to local cities and counties, major metros, everything in between, state DPSs. So all these numbers add up to a tremendous success rate. And again, as Kerry mentioned, on the use of force continuum, anywhere on that spectrum, whether you have a completely restrictive policy to a completely discretionary policy, leaving up to the officer or a watch commander or whoever's in charge of that shift or that event, we fit pretty much anywhere on that spectrum. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on.
So we share this with our prospective customers. This is just a snapshot at one of our more tenured agencies or customer agencies, Albuquerque Police, and they have one of the better or more successful programs that we've seen. And it's really based on what we see the successful programs. It's based on 3 pillars, and we'll get into that after we talk about these stats. But last year at IACP, Chief Medina received an award from StarChase. And he attributed in his speech, or when he was speaking at IACP, he attributed his drop in theft-related crime in large part to their StarChase program. And he shared with us a memo that he received with one of his commanders that basically was a justification memo to add to their StarChase program. And as you can see here, prior to the addition of units to their program, they already had 39 operable StarChase units. This is a snapshot of just over 4 months. Within 120 days, they had 120 StarChase deployments, so 1 a day. It resulted in 44 felony arrests, 49 stolen vehicles recovered, and it also assisted in the investigation leading to warrant arrest, some DWIs, and 6 vehicles that fled traffic stops, as well as the apprehension of a homicide suspect. And again, this is just a snapshot of what they were doing, and they subsequently purchased 20 additional units. I talked to you about Albuquerque's success. We have 3 pillars that we try to promote to agencies on how they're going to be the most successful when they implement a StarChase program. And that's based on a solid foundation of a policy that your officers or deputies can work with StarChase and work under. And it goes to a solid program manager within the agency. Within any law enforcement agencies, there's always someone who oversees, whether it's firearms, defensive tactics, taser program, LPR, camera program. We're going to need the same thing for a StarChase program. Not difficult to do, but you're going to need a good program manager in place. And really, that's what we're here to help you with. And then, of course, last but not least, there does need to be some recurring training associated with StarChase. Like everything else that in law enforcement, this is a perishable skill. And so if you're not using it on a regular basis, you're going to find that your operators or your officers are not at they're not performing their best. Anything you want to add to that, Matt?
No, that's great, Kerry.
This is what our StarChase ecosystem looks like. You can see at the center of this slide is our CoreView real-time mapping. And it's important to point out CoreView real-time mapping is basically the heartbeat or what powers each one of our other tools or officer safety tools that we sell or offer. You'll see on the top, we have two suspect tracking or apprehension tools. One is our vehicle mounted launcher. The other is our handheld launcher. Both powered by CoreView, but you don't have to buy all of them to get CoreView. As long as you buy one of our products, you're going to get CoreView, and that's where that real-time mapping comes in. And then, of course, the two products that we offer in the bottom, in the green circles, they are officer safety tools. One is AppTrack, which is a mobile tracking application downloadable on your phones. The other is Slipstream, which is effectively AVL data, and we'll go over each one of these. So the first thing I want to talk about is CoreView. This is the heartbeat of everything. This is our real-time mapping system. And some of the key features associated with CoreView are that, first and foremost, this is a web-based access application. This is not a software. It's not going to be an add-on where you need plugins or you need constant updates. As long as the users within your agency have internet connectivity and have access to the internet, you're going to always have access to CoreView mapping. Accessible on any type of device, whether it's a desktop, a laptop, a cellular phone, a CAD terminal, or an MDT. Again, as long as there's internet connectivity, you will be able to log in, stay logged in, and have access to CoreView mapping. And really the way it works is for the vehicle mounted launcher and the handheld launcher, anytime a tag is deployed in the field, whether it's at the onset of a pursuit or tagging a vehicle under probable cause, that as soon as that dart is deployed, it's going to pop up as an active tag on your CoreView mapping. It's going to give you real-time updates. Every 3 to 5 seconds, you're going to get the actual latitude, longitude of the dart, the physical location, the speed at which that dart is traveling, as well as the remaining battery life on the darts. And it's going to be pinpoint accurate to within 2 meters. So you're not going to have to search through large parking lots. You're not going to have to search, large stretches of roadway. Where that dot is on the map, that's where that suspect vehicle is going to be. And then, of course, within the mapping system, after a live event has occurred, you're going to have the ability to go back in and download or play back that entire event. You can download every data point contained within. It's all court admissible. And then, of course, you do have a historical playback where you can actually see it rewound or replayed in live time. And then, of course, obviously within the application, there are many features. You as the customer agency can view the type of map you want to view, whether it's a satellite or a hybrid version of a map. You can incorporate local points of interest. And I think one of the best features associated with this is, of course, incorporating live traffic patterns. We talked about that real-time visibility for your agency and your operators. Imagine, if you will, being a supervisor who's not involved in a pursuit, responding from the station, responding from another incident, and being able to see, or dispatch being able to see, that pursuing officer is going into a heavily trafficked area. Imagine the type of decision making, the better decisions to be made with that real-time visibility. That protects not only the officers, but the community, the surrounding area, going into a heavily congested school area, going into a congested commercial area, having that visibility on CoreView and being able to see what is in front of you. It's the next best thing to having a crystal ball or knowing exactly where that suspect is going. Conversely, having the ability to see where that suspect is going or terminating, if you are not right behind them, that's the whole intent behind the design, it's going to allow your officers to make a more competent decision and to make a safer apprehension. Additionally, knowing where that suspect is coming to rest, think about the investigative leads that your agency might get as a result of that, as opposed to a suspect getting out of a car and not knowing which house that suspect went into. So the possibilities are endless. You guys can obviously see from this the benefits to that real-time visibility and that tracking. And then, of course, I think one of the best features for this is our share link. And really what that is you as the customer agency, if you have a policy that precludes you from leaving your jurisdiction in a pursuit, let's just say it's a theft-related crime, you can't leave your jurisdiction, your dispatch or your users will have the ability to click on a hyperlink to this real-time track, and you can send it to the neighboring agency. They can now view your core view and see this incident live time as guest users on your core view mapping platform. So we talked about it being a force multiplier, extending command and control. I'll give you one real brief example of an agency who was successful in doing this earlier this year. One of our Colorado customers was tracking a stolen vehicle based on a flock license plate reader hit. Their policy precluded them from leaving the city limits. Well, that was okay, because what they did was they just tracked using core view mapping, and the suspect subsequently drove 156 miles through 3 different counties, 3 different jurisdictions, and the customer agency's dispatch center just kept on sending the hyperlink to the agency in which that suspect vehicle was in. And 156 miles away, the local agency was able to be there, effect an arrest, and recover the stolen vehicle. So that's just a quick snapshot on the power of core view mapping. And then, of course, as you see on the bottom, we do have universal API integrations with those technologies that you may have already invested in, whether it's Fusus Real-Time Crime Center, Flock Safety LPR, or Motorola. We have those direct API integrations. And what that means is we can simply overlay our mapping system on whatever mapping system your CAD or your agency utilizes. So it makes it very easy for your users not to have to toggle back and forth between mapping platforms. And then, of course, we do have an agency program dashboard within CoreView that we'll go over next. Did I miss anything that you want to share on that, Matt?
No, I just want to point out that a lot of these features and benefits come directly from our customer base. So those that are in law enforcement that require certain tools to do the job give us a tremendous amount of feedback and suggestions. And a lot of those have resulted in the things that you're looking at right now. For example, deployment alerts via text messages. The ShareLink feature itself came from one of our customers. Then also we work with agencies to design a program dashboard to be effective to use certain data points. I also want to point out the universal API integrations. Huge kudos to companies like Fusus, Flock Safety, and Motorola we've been working with now for quite a while to do those overlays and to provide that universal access so that those investments that your entities have already made can be fruitful, and that window of opportunity can be opened up for things like StarChase to effect an arrest safely. So thanks to those guys as well.
Yeah, and last but not least, you can see on the lower left, all the data associated with all your tracks is all stored in the cloud, AWS GovCloud certified. So moving along, this is what a customer dashboard looks like. And this is where I think really your program managers and the command staff within your agency are going to really rely upon one of these. Like any other program, if you have the ability to look in at a daily snapshot and take a look at all of your systems, all of your tags, all of the users, the trained users within your department who are deploying StarChase, couple this with the dashboards from other technologies that you have invested in. It's really going to allow your agency to more effectively maintain their StarChase program. You'll know where those license plate reader hits or their stolen vehicles are occurring within your city. It will allow you a better snapshot to know, okay, over the past 60 days, we've had this many StarChase deployments, and maybe 80% of those are within a certain beat within your city. Having the ability to have the dashboard and the metrics within the dashboard provided to you on a daily basis is going to be invaluable for your command staff, for your supervisors, for your operations bureau. And then, of course, yearly statistics. This is really going to be where you see as an agency where you're succeeding or where you need to maybe make some changes to your program. But having the ability to see everything from every tag, every device you have on the street, every user within your agency, it's going to be invaluable. And really, this is where you see your return on your investment. And you make sure as an agency that you don't lapse on this. There's always going to be a return on your investment. This is just a quick screenshot that really encapsulates exactly what core view mapping can do. This is going to be a summary case. You're going to see here, this is exactly what it looks like. At the top of every summary case, it's going to give you the total distance traveled, the max speed, the average speed, and this is the playback feature. Every one of those red data points or red dots is a data point every 3 to 5 seconds. So the only difference from what you see here versus what you would see live is that here you see an ending point, and it's a downloadable program. When it's live, this is exactly what you're going to see on the track. You're going to know where it's going into traffic. You're going to know where it's headed. You're going to be able to make better decisions to effect an arrest. But then, of course, downloadable evidence, it's going to make it far easier for your officers to write a completely accurate report. And this is a great piece of evidence to submit to your local DA's office for prosecution. Even though you may not have seen the vehicle traveling at high speeds through a residential area or through a school zone, this is data that cannot be manipulated, and it's going to be data that's going to be valuable for that felony reckless driving, because it's going to be, it can't be argued. It's not data that can be manipulated, and it's going to contain everything from the point that tag was deployed to the point it was recovered. So great piece of evidence, very easy to use.
Yeah, and if your agency requires this under a sworn affidavit scenario, we actually will download this data for you to ensure chain of custody hasn't been compromised. So we're actually able to do that as well and share that with your agency or with your DAs or prosecutors in return.
And if we need to appear in court, whether it's virtually to swear on that through the affidavit, that's something we do, no additional charge. So this is the Guardian VX, the vehicle mounted launcher. This is our flagship product. Again, designed for suspect vehicle tracking. And I want to emphasize short-term exigent use. We're gonna touch on that ACLU endorsement here shortly. But if there's anything you take away from this slide, obviously this encapsulates the nomenclature of the system, what it does. But if there's anything that you take away from this slide or this particular talking point, it's that our technology in this vehicle mounted launcher and these darts, they do not alter the suspect vehicle dynamics of the suspect vehicle or your patrol vehicles. We all know in a police agency, there's an increased liability associated with pursuits and high-speed pursuits. Our technology is not going to increase that liability for you. We are not deflating tires at high rates of speed. We are not changing the sudden course of the vehicle. This is simply done through affixing a dart. As you can see here, the projectiles are actually deployed through compressed air. There's no explosions, no primers, no combustibles. It's a fully autonomous system. And again, if they're deployed, each one of these is deployed through compressed air. NIJ certified less lethal. These rounds will come out at about 27 miles per hour. We always get questions. What happens if it hits someone? It's very rare. I think, I can count on 2 fingers how many times that's happened in the last 2 years. But if it does, it's not much different than a young adult throwing a softball or a tennis ball at you. 27 miles per hour. It's a 54 millimeter GPS round. It's not going to be confused for any other rounds within your arsenal. And you have two tags that get loaded into each system. As you can see from the picture there, the control center within your driver compartment, very easy to use. It's used or designed for eyes up operation, all raised buttons, tactile feel. We typically go out to live demos with agencies and demo this product. And within probably less than 5 minutes, operators from the chief level down to the newest officer are successfully deploying tags with less than 5 minutes of time. Really not difficult to use. I think one of the best features for this, as Matt said, we kind of get information and take suggestions from our customer agencies. The system has the ability to remote deploy. What I mean by that is if one of your officers is out on a vehicle stop, he or she may walk up to the vehicle or go back to their police vehicle. If that suspect driver throws it into drive, that officer, as long as the system is armed, will have the ability to remote deploy one of these tags. So if that vehicle, the suspect vehicle, takes off, there's a key fob. All that officer has to do is push that button and that tag is going to get deployed. very short period of time. And we've seen agencies use this, often, and it's very effective. Each system, as I talked about, it's a dual barrel system. All the rounds, the way the technology works is these rounds are spec'd out and tested to work in temperatures from -20 degrees to 140 degrees. There's not many places within the US that really have to work outside of those parameters. I'm here in Arizona, and it gets pretty hot. We had temperatures up to 130 degrees in the barrel of my demo car, and rounds were still coming out just fine, and they affixed to everything all of the time. I'd say what Matt is, we're experiencing about a 90 to 93% stick rate.
93% right now, correct.
Right. So again, not many agencies that I can think of that work outside those parameters. And we have agencies in cold weather. We have agencies in the Pacific Northwest where there's a significant amount of rainfall and snow. We have agencies in the Canadian provinces. So it's the system works very effectively.
Important to note the line that Kerry pointed out, the suspect vehicle dynamics a little bit. So, this is a big thing for us. I mean, it's perfectly fine if your agency uses other modalities. It can certainly be used in conjunction with those modalities or as an alternative to. And again, there's a right tool for the right time and the right event. So we're very heavy on promoting that and helping every agency find sort of their sweet spot as far as officer safety goes and overall public safety. We have a lot of stats, guys, that we go over all the time. I think some of the most glaringly obvious ones that you can find in the PERF report that was released last October. We know that within about a minute and a half of a deployment, that suspect will slow down to about 10 miles per hour of the posted speed limit. And that's a great start in, again, affecting a more safer outcome. But we're also giving law enforcement now the ability who have a totally restrictive policy, that ability now to go after safely suspects as opposed to doing a pursuit-related launch, maybe a pre-pursuit related launch on an LPR hit, for example, at a stop sign, at a stoplight, probable cause scenario, launch your tag, let it take off, and then be able to track that suspect safely through the technology, as opposed to reacting to what the suspect does. It's really changed the entire narrative for law enforcement. The agencies that are using this now, they now have the ability to determine that outcome on their conditions and terms, as opposed to reacting to what the suspect does. So it's been a tremendous lifesaver, I know, for all of our customer base, and we hear that every single day. One last thing I would point out, this system is designed for even officer safety within the vehicle. We install in the passenger third for a reason. We promote and train on teaching an offset to the suspect car, so you have eyes up down range. There's audible cues inside the vehicle coming to the officer to let him know when the system is being armed, when it's ready to fire. As Kerry mentioned, the tactile feel and geometric shapes of the control panel buttons are there for muscle memory. That way the officer never has to really take his eyes off the road, I should say, to use this platform. Extremely effective, extremely safe, and very, very impactful as far as both apprehensions and also improving overall officer safety.
Yeah, real quick, Matt, just want to make sure we touch on this because I don't know that I did, and I think it's worthy of mentioning. Going back to the short-term exigent use, the reason we got that ACLU endorsement is because the ACLU basically reviewed our technology and what its capabilities were versus what it does not do. And basically a couple of years ago, someone was tagged and thought they had a civil rights violation, brought it to their local ACLU chapter. Well, the national chapter actually investigated our technology, contacted us, found out what it's meant to do, and they actually gave us an endorsement on that and said, yes, you guys are using this. It's compliant with the Fourth Amendment, exigent circumstance, automobile exception to the warrant rule. Going back to 1925, the Carroll Doctrine, Carroll versus U.S., and that's the presiding case law over this. And it's completely permissible to use that under those circumstances, because again, we all know in law enforcement, vehicles are inherently mobile. So that exigency occurs as soon as there's flight. And that's really why we have that ACLU endorsement. It's not something we sought out, but it was something that was given to us. And there's obviously a benefit for that, certainly. When your chiefs or elected officials are dealing with their constituents or county council or city councils, that endorsement tends to go a long way. And then, of course, why we have that is because each one of those tags only lasts for 8 hours on an active track. And I always get the question, well, okay, what happens when the battery runs out? I can assure you, you're going to run out of gas before the battery life runs out. And that's happened to several agencies. But the battery life's not going to run out on an active track, 8 hours. So to give this video a little context, this is just outside of New York City. This officer is responding to a Flock license plate reader hit. If you're not familiar with Flock, they send out SMS text messages every time a wanted vehicle crosses through the path of one of their LPRs. So this officer is responding code. And the reason I say that is because there's a technique in the way this officer does it, and it's textbook. He's responding code and clearing traffic. And as soon as he nears the area where the suspect vehicle is, he shuts off his lights and sirens, and he arms the StarChase system. You will be able to hear some audible cues in the video itself from the StarChase system that's arming. And of course, once the system's armed, those audible cues change, letting the officer know, still keeping eyes up. There's those audible cues that let him know the system's armed. And you're going to see the officer pull in behind a BMW in the number 2 lane. After he matches speed with the vehicle, he pulls in for maybe 2 seconds, deploys the tag, and pulls out of that lane. But it's a textbook tag. It's at about 65 miles per hour. And then, of course, he notifies dispatch that StarChase has been deployed.
And I'm just spraying northbound. We're notifying state via hotline now.
45 Adam, I'm getting on the screen now. If you just tell me about how far behind.
Yeah, those aren't readable. 4 times, you confirm you're engaged with this?
The suspect vehicle is that blue BMW in the 2 lane. Right now, the system's arming, and as soon as it does, he pulls in behind it and deploys the tag at about 65 miles per hour.
45 Adam, StarChase deployed. Good hit.
We're not positive that's the vehicle.
Really important to illustrate to everyone here that, again, we're not introducing an additional layer of danger to a potentially dangerous situation. And that's really the whole point, to slow things down, give officers the opportunity to match speed, lay a tag, tap the brakes, back off, create that sort of buffer zone, if you will, take the whole fight or flight response out of the equation to a certain degree. But also speaking to what the officer experiences inside the vehicle, there's a myriad of things that that individual is worrying about, whether it's communications, obviously eyes on the road, other equipment in the vehicle, other things they're trained to do through their normal instruction. This is one added component that you're throwing into the mixture. We've made this as extremely user-friendly as possible, and again, to provide that additional layer of safety as well.
We've got agencies at the federal level, state patrol levels, all the way down to very small local municipalities utilizing this. The user friendliness of this does not change based on the type of agency you work for. It's really designed with the officer's safety in mind, and it's very effective. So this is our handheld version, our Guardian HX. And again, StarChase listening to customers several years ago, had a customer agency who said, hey, we're not always going to be in a vehicle. I work in a task force. I want to be able to do the same thing. Do you have any tools for that? And so StarChase came up with the handheld launcher. Again, designed for suspect vehicle tracking, short-term exigent use, uses the exact same tag, size tag, 54 millimeter GPS round. This too is NIJ certified less lethal. The actual system itself is completely electronic, and it's all, again, through compressed air. That yellow upper receiver, there's an air tank in there. At the beginning of your shift, you can load up that air tank, load the round, and that can sit in your patrol vehicle for quite some time before you'll even have to check it again. The battery is the actual magazine. The magazine gets inserted into the magazine well, and that's what powers it. Completely electronic. We often get asked, well, what if someone, could this ever be converted based on the type of lower receiver it is? The answer is, in short, no. It would take a significant amount of work to ever be able to make this a functionable firearm. And that's because the system is completely gutted. There's no sear engagement. And really, it's an electronic device designed to deploy this round through compressed air. And of course, where you get the red dot optic sight for easy to pick up your target. All of this comes in a custom Pelican case with all the required pieces of equipment. Where we see the significant amount of use for this, from task force, UC task force, auto theft task force investigators, investigative units, SWAT teams, DUI checkpoints. It really provides agencies or operators the ability to deploy a tag in a very short period of time under exigent circumstances if you're not inside of a vehicle. I think Matt's got a video after this. The optimal range for this is anywhere between 30 and 40 feet. It does come out a little faster than the vehicle mounted launchers, but again, it's still NIJ certified, less lethal. Standing down range 40 feet from this, you can catch them with your hands. It's not going to injure or create any sort of sustained damage to the patrol or to the vehicle that you're tagging.
So what does it sound like when a car is tagged? It actually sounds like a tennis ball being thrown against the back of the vehicle. And 9 times out of 10, what we see again from our customer feedback data that we get on every deployment, in most cases, the suspect hears that noise, is not quite sure what it is, ends up eventually just pulling over anyway. So again, another huge win for another safe event. But here's a quick video of that as well with one of our customers.
So this is all of our, going back to our ecosystem of tools and technology that we have. This is falls under the officer safety component of our ecosystem. AppTrack is a mobile tracking application downloadable on phones. Where we see use for this is through, again, SWAT teams, investigative teams, patrol teams. It's only limited to what your imagination is. But basically it's designed for officer safety. Within the actual application itself, it offers real-time mapping and tracking of all your assets, meaning your officers. We've probably all been in that position in law enforcement where we've been out of radio range and unable to transmit whether we need help or where our location is based on two-way radio. This is a great alternative for that. And of course, within the application, it offers live video for situational awareness, secure compliant, communications, whether it's text or calling, sharing of pictures, video, all FOIA compliant, but all secure. And I'll let Matt expand on that.
So, it's available on iOS or Android. Back to secure communications real quickly. So maybe there's radio channel traffic you don't want to have broadcast, that you want to have secure communications for operational purposes or for officer safety purposes. And again, going back to the FOIA compliant component of all that, still keeping in with what's expected, obviously, from law enforcement in that regard as well. And we have been verified as a FirstNet AT&T platform application. It's available there, or through the normal channels of app stores that you can download to as well to your phone.
It's a great alternative for officer safety and communications outside of a two-way radio.
Really important to note, if you look at the middle picture, the officer actually dictates when he's on duty or off duty. When the off duty button is selected, that officer is not being tracked on his phone. I just want to make sure to make that clear for privacy's sake as well.
And then last but not least is Slipstream. This is our vehicle or asset tracking system. We all understand, I think, in today's day and age, what AVL data is. AVL data typically embedded within the vehicles or associated with CAD systems. But we understand not every agency has the ability to pay for that or implement that. And so this is a very low cost alternative to exactly what AVL data is. We've all been inside the back of a police vehicle or in the trunk and know that patrol officers don't get a lot of trunk space. I kind of laugh at this picture because it resonates true. There's a lot going on in the patrol vehicles. This offers a very simple solution, but again, designed for officer safety. Real-time vehicle location, no additional equipment. It's basically one quick plug-in, and then you become discoverable, or your vehicle becomes discoverable on our core view mapping. And Matt, you can certainly add anything else that I might be missing on that.
Yeah, both proprietary apps are extremely low cost. They actually provide additional layers of intel to your agency. So not just the suspect tracking aspect of CoreView, but also being able to see your most important assets, both your personnel through AppTrack and your vehicles through Slipstream as well. You can incorporate any part of those product suite that you want. And most importantly, Sincere thanks to our partners cooperatively over at Safeware for hosting this for us. We're greatly appreciative of that and look forward to working with anyone who has questions. From a pricing perspective, we're not going to go into specific numbers today. We're happy to talk about the pricing components, if you will. But if you have questions about pricing, your Safeware representative can certainly help you in that regard in your respective territory. So thanks a lot to our partners at Safeware. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. And really, we go through a lot of information based on this PowerPoint of this presentation, but this is what we look forward to is the question and answer. So please, for those attendees or participants that are with us now, there's no silly questions. We're here to answer any question we can to help you guys out.
All right. Go with the first question. What percentage of vehicles are agencies deploying on? And are these usually just patrol vehicles or focused on specialized units?
There's not really a magic answer to that. We get that question a lot, actually. Agencies know their communities the best and sort of where their problem and challenges lie. It's really up to the operational commanders and also the decision makers who look at all the crime stats. That you guys are now very data driven in that environment, so you know where your hot spots are. But you also know some of the limitations from a policy perspective, whether it be from the political winds that are blowing today in law enforcement or just the challenges from budgetary perspectives. So it really just matters on the supply and demand, if you will. We fit into a great window of opportunity. So as Kerry mentioned, all these huge investments that are being made in real-time crime centers and fusion centers for LPR platforms and camera platforms. There's still that window of opportunity where what do you do after you've got a hit on a criminal vehicle or a stolen vehicle? What do you do about it next safely? That's our window of opportunity to be able to get some sort of a discernible, traceable means on that suspect under short-term exigent circumstances until your agency or combined agencies actually can effect an arrest on their terms very safely under those conditions. So that's really our window of opportunity. As far as the number of units, we can consult with you on what other agencies do. We would certainly implore that our customers are very open to talking to other opportunities. So please let us know. We're happy to give you reference points based on your geography or your metro layout or your county layout or whatever the case may be. We'll find customers that are actually size and similar in stature to be able to have those conversations, collectively one-on-one without our involvement whatsoever. We're happy to connect anyone with anybody.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, Matt, if you don't mind, I think a lot of that to answer that question depends on what your day-to-day operational mission or capabilities are. If you've got a proactive unit who is assigned to go out and do nothing but proactive police work, whether it's searching for stolen vehicles or responding to felony crimes in progress, those are the vehicles that I would deploy StarChase on, compared to if you have patrol vehicles that are responding to, do nothing but calls for service, or conversely, if you've got patrol vehicles or marked vehicles that are assigned to an SRO who's going to be in a school for 6 to 7 hours out of an 8-hour shift, that's probably not where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. So that's what we're here to help you with. And then to touch again on what you said, Matt, regardless of your agency's policy, or whether you have a very restrictive pursuit policy or a liberal pursuit policy, really, again, the only limitation for StarChase is based on your imagination and what you guys can come up with from a tactical standpoint. We've got agencies that have air support available to them 24/7, but we all know in the police world, air support's not always readily available. So I think of a track that recently happened in the Bay Area where StarChase was deployed, and within 30 seconds of it being deployed, the suspect drove the wrong way on a freeway. So based on the obvious concerns there for public safety, they terminated the pursuit. Well, they then relied on their core view mapping, and it took about 30 to 40 minutes before their air support was up in the air and available to help. But in that 30 to 40 minute time, that suspect vehicle had gone through several other cities, but that airship, as soon as they were up and aboard, they knew exactly where to go, and they were able to track the vehicle, and they took the suspects into custody and recovered the vehicle. So going back to what you may or may not have access to technology-wise, something we didn't spend a lot of time on, or policy, it really doesn't matter, because that StarChase is going to, and that live view tracking is going to enable you to do things that you haven't been able to do before. So it's taking that narrative back. You know, Washington State, very restrictive from a state level on policies and being able to pursue. But all these agencies who had invested in LPRs needed a resource to track all these suspects. And they developed policies where pre-pursuit deployments, as long as probable cause existed to seize that vehicle or search that vehicle, they would tag vehicles prior to ever lighting them up. And if they fled, that's fine, because they resort to the core view mapping. If they didn't, then they pulled over and it was no harm, no foul. So it's really up to you as the customer agency, but that's what we're here to help you do.
And it's not financially feasible. We understand that, to fleet out, you know, with StarChase. It's just not possible in some, especially major metros, right? But you have tons of vehicles out doing, as Carrie mentioned, patrol or calls for service. They recognize a wanted vehicle or a vehicle in progress of some sort, have units closely, you know, aligned or in the proximity of a certain radius to those patrol sectors. At least a unit that can respond within a short period of time. Again, that window of opportunity is what we're talking about.
Awesome. Have you sold any units to Canadian law enforcement?
We have.
And
I did want to touch on that real briefly. So we get this question a lot. It's unfortunately kind of one of our marketing handcuffs, if you will. We have a ton of agency customers. We're just not allowed to talk about 90% of them, unfortunately. So we as a company have agreed that if an agency has decided not to go public with their StarChase program, we honor that and respect that. So regardless of who contacts us from a media perspective or private citizen standpoint, or even a legal one, from an inquiry from, you know, defense attorneys or whatever the case may be, without obviously a subpoena, we don't discuss who our customers are without their prior approval. So we continue to maintain that responsible, I think, relationship.
Sweet. Is there a max speed for effective deployment with the car mount system?
So our fastest tag to date, I believe, is 138 miles per hour. And to answer that a little bit more in depthly, I guess I should say, our visual reference, we go out and do demonstrations, and our trainers train this way as well. All of our trainers are former law enforcement, so they're very well versed in EVOC and standards and all that. You know, part of our training regimen is obtaining, you know, your agency's policy for training to make sure we don't conflict with that. So we make sure we're copacetic with what we're doing when we're out there on site. Our trainers do a meticulous job of maintaining a high safety standard. So it's imperative for them to understand what your agency is acceptable as far as their training goes, what limitations there may be. That's first and foremost. From a deployment perspective, as far as speed, the reference points that we use are at 60 miles an hour or under. I want to make sure that suspect's tires are on the hood of my vehicle just for a few seconds, enough time for me to lay a tag, tap my brakes, and back off. If I'm over 60 miles per hour, that launcher actually can pitch down 10 degrees. I want to take that, get a little bit tighter by a few feet, and actually take the dirty air coming off that front vehicle out of the equation to keep that round nice and low to make center mass contact. But again, it works at speeds well over 130 miles per hour.
Yeah, and I think it's important to follow up on that, Matt. You know, as you mentioned, you're only behind the suspect vehicle for a very short period of time. As you saw from that one video, that officer, again, textbook tag at 65, 70 miles per hour. He was only behind that vehicle for maybe less than 2 seconds. And as we talked about, what it looks like from a visual reference equates to anywhere that sweet spot on the vehicle mounted launchers. I'd say between 20, 25 feet, depending on speeds. But very easy to use. And again, you're not there for a long period of time. The officer, the operator's attention is trained on the vehicle and the surrounding area. And again, going back to what you said, all of our trainers and all of our staff, we're all former law enforcement. So we get it. We understand the concerns, the liabilities associated with pursuits. And that's why it's so important that we, when we're engaged and ready to train with new prospective customer agencies, that we get your policy. And again, we can help you provide sample policies from other agencies, whether it's a Lexipol agency, a CALIA agency. We have access to that, and you guys don't need to reinvent the wheel as a new customer agency. We're here to help you with that.
All right. Are these controlled via Wi-Fi? If so, what happens if there's little to no service?
They are not. So standard GPS technology using cellular across multiple networks. So don't rely on Wi-Fi at all.
Do they enter or integrate live tracking with, I don't know that word, FUS? How can we
Fusus?
bring big Fusus?
Yeah. So we have been integrated with Fusus now for 2 years. We're in a lot of real-time crime centers throughout the country. They've been a great company to work with. Essentially, the way this works, if your dispatchers or your comm centers are looking at a Fusus platform screen, a critical alert's going to pop up once a deployment actually occurs from a StarChase unit. If we've integrated for your agency, those bones and foundations have already been done. We've got tons of agencies that are already using this nationwide. Very seamless. For your agency, it takes about 3 to 4 days to get all the details about your agency integrated into that Fusus setup in your RTCC or your own proprietary crime center. But yeah, we're fully integrated with Fusus as well.
I think, Matt, going back to that, I think we can share this because it was featured on Good Morning America. So it's certainly not private information, but Beverly Hills PD has a very new and active real-time crime center, and we are integrated with them. And if there's anybody here who needs contact information that's within the law enforcement network, you can certainly reach out to me directly, and we can facilitate that if you have additional questions.
Any other questions? Alrighty.
Looks like that's all the questions that we have on that side. Matt, Carrie, is there anything else you want to add before we close it down for today?
No, other than we are here to help. I'm sure our contact information has been provided, and we'll certainly do whatever we can to assist Safeware and interested customer agencies. We thank you for your time. Obviously this is we promote this and believe this is life-saving technology, and it is. Don't just take our word for it. Reach out to our customer agencies, and we're here to help you.
Well, we can connect anybody with any one of our customers, whether it's at any level, federal, state, city or local, or county, doesn't matter. We're happy to connect everybody with someone in that sort of demographic or that regional sort of profile, or whatever your agency's setup may be. We're happy to connect you with one or many. Up to you guys as well. And as Carrie mentioned, we have tons of data points we can share, as well as policy samples from other agencies. It's really up to the agency to determine what that language looks like. We can give you just some sample examples of what other agencies who've been successful have used. But again, that's going to come obviously from your policy standards from the agency level. But thanks a lot to Safeware for having us. Thanks for all the attendees who attended today. Appreciate the time and effort, and please hit us up if we can help you guys out.